She was America's most radiant smile, the golden girl who carried a nation through its darkest years. When Shirley Temple walked onto a stage, America forgot for a moment the poverty of the Great Depression, the soup kitchen lines, the dust of dried-out fields. Millions of people spent their last cents to watch this child dance. Presidents received her. Kings bowed before her. The church sent investigators to verify whether she was even a real child. But behind that flawless facade lay a truth Hollywood buried for decades. A little girl forced into costumes that would have shamed adults. A child locked inside a soundproof black box with a block of ice as punishment. A daughter her own mother refused to believe. A young woman who had to fight off producers with physical force, and an adult woman who discovered at the end of her years of fame that millions of dollars had been reduced to nothing but scraps. What truly lay behind Shirley Temple's smile, what the FBI files revealed after her death, and what secrets Hollywood would still prefer the world forgot. All of that is what we are going to tell you today. Stay with us, because the deeper we go into this story, the more you will understand that the greatest myth Hollywood ever created was also its greatest crime. And meanwhile, make sure to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any new untold stories about Hollywood stars. Smash that like button and hit the notification bell. Shirley Jane Temple was born on April 23, 1928 in Santa Monica, California. Her father, George Temple, worked as a bank clerk. Her mother, Gertrude, was an ambitious woman who had once dreamed of becoming a ballet dancer, a dream she never realized. The moment Gertrude watched her daughter perform on a stage for the first time, she did not see a child. She saw a second chance. Shirley was 3 years old when her mother brought her to the educational studios, where she was to appear in a series of short films called the Baby Burlesques. What sounded harmless was in truth one of the darkest chapters in early Hollywood history. The Baby Burlesques were short comedy films that placed young children in adult-themed situations, a concept that, by today's standards, would never make it past a single conversation in any studio. The tiny performers were dressed in costumes designed to mimic grown-up characters, directed to behave in ways far beyond their years, and filmed under the full weight of professional production pressure. In one episode, Politics in Washington, Shirley was cast as a Washington insider, a character meant to parody the political world of the era. She wore a costume chosen by adults, moved the way her director told her to move, and delivered expressions she had been coached to perform. The child did not understand the role she was playing. She simply did what she was told, and the camera kept rolling. The director was Charles Lamont, the man who discovered Shirley Temple, signed her first contract, and shaped her early years in the industry, not through encouragement, but through control and fear. Lamont had a particular method for maintaining discipline on set. When a child refused to cooperate, when they cried, hesitated, or simply wanted to be a child, they were placed inside a soundproof black box. Inside was a large block of ice. The children sat alone in the darkness, trembling from cold and fear until they were ready to comply again. Lamont warned them explicitly. Anyone who tells their parents will be punished far worse. Shirley told her mother anyway. Gertrude Temple did not believe her. That may have been the bitterest betrayal of Shirley's life, not from a stranger or a powerful studio executive, but from her own mother. Gertrude had curled her daughter's hair with hot irons every morning, taught her exactly when to smile and how to bow, how to enter a room and leave it. She had turned Shirley into a machine that produced dollars, and she was not willing to question that machine. Decades later, Shirley wrote in her autobiography Child Star that she had been a child who did not understand what she was doing, while the whole world considered her wonderful. She called those early productions a shameless exploitation of childhood, a statement that forced America to examine its own golden myth. And yet, despite everything, or perhaps because of everything, Shirley Temple was a force of nature on screen. She radiated something that could not be staged, a genuine joy that shone through years of control and pain. In 1934, she became an international superstar with the film Bright Eyes. The song On the Good Ship Lollipop became the best-selling children's song of its era. For 3 consecutive years, 1935, 1936, and 1937, Shirley Temple was the most profitable film star in Hollywood, ahead of Clark Gable, ahead of Gary Cooper, ahead of every adult who had ever signed a contract. A little girl saved an entire film industry, and that film industry destroyed her childhood in return. Here is a fact that even seasoned film historians rarely mention. Shirley Temple received an honorary Academy Award in 1935, a special miniature Oscar created specifically for her. What appeared to be an honor was in reality a calculated move by the Academy to avoid the situation where a child competed in the regular category against adults and won. They feared the precedent. So they invented a separate category, handed her a miniature statuette, and applauded warmly. The child smiled and curtsied, exactly as she had been taught. What almost no one knows is what happened at that ceremony behind the scenes. Shirley was handed her miniature statuette by Claudette Colbert and Irvin S. Cobb. The audience rose to its feet. Flashbulbs exploded across the room. And in the middle of that standing ovation, surrounded by the most powerful people in the entertainment world, the little girl reportedly whispered to her mother that she needed to use the restroom. Gertrude told her to hold it. The show must go on. That single exchange, recounted years later by people who witnessed it, captured everything about Shirley Temple's childhood that the cameras never showed. A child drowning in the expectations of adults, not permitted even a moment of ordinary humanity. But the strangest, most absurd, and at the same time, most revealing thing ever publicly associated with Shirley Temple was not a Hollywood scandal at all. It came from the Vatican. A rumor had spread through Europe in the mid-1930s, quietly at first, then with a speed that baffled even experienced journalists. It was said that Shirley Temple wasn't a child. She was an adult little person, a dwarf disguised as a girl, used by Hollywood to deceive audiences worldwide. The rumor sounded ridiculous. It was ridiculous. But it spread until it reached the sacred halls of the Vatican, and the Vatican acted. Father Silvio Massante, an official representative of the Holy See, was dispatched to America with a formal mandate to verify personally whether Shirley Temple was genuinely a child. He arrived at the Temple household, asked serious questions about birth certificates, witness testimonies, and physical characteristics. He was not amused. He had a mission. Shirley later described this encounter as the strangest thing that ever happened to her, and she had experienced a great deal. She wrote that she understood it. When people are surrounded by artificiality for long enough, they begin to doubt what is real. The rumor had persisted partly because Shirley appeared never to lose her baby teeth, which was, of course, untrue. The reality was more prosaic and entirely revealing of the system that surrounded her. Shirley did lose her baby teeth, but during filming she wore partial porcelain dentures to conceal the gaps. A flawless smile was a contractual requirement. Even her body was not permitted to be childlike. The same logic applied to her curls. Her trademark ringlets, 56 of them, which Gertrude Temple counted daily, were real. But maintaining them was a form of torture. Shirley had to follow a strict nightly hair routine, and once a week her hair was rinsed with vinegar. The acid burned her eyes. She often wept from the pain. But the next morning the curls sat perfectly in place. There was another dimension to Shirley's public image that most people never considered. The merchandise empire built entirely around her likeness without her meaningful consent or financial benefit. By the mid-1930s, Shirley Temple dolls were being sold in department stores across America and in dozens of countries worldwide. There were Shirley Temple dresses, Shirley Temple dishes, Shirley Temple soap figurines, and even a Shirley Temple cocktail, a sweet non-alcoholic drink that still carries her name today in bars and restaurants around the world. The licensing revenue from these products was staggering. Estimates suggest that the merchandise industry built around Shirley Temple generated more than $45 million during the peak years of her fame. Shirley and her family saw almost none of it. The contracts had been signed by adults, negotiated by studio lawyers, and structured in ways that ensured the little girl at the center of the empire received the smallest possible share of what her own face and name produced. She was, in the most literal sense, a brand. And like any brand, she was owned by people who had no interest in what she wanted or felt. And then there was the money she did officially earn. At the height of her career, Shirley Temple earned up to $300,000 per year, an unimaginable sum during the years of the Great Depression when millions of Americans could not afford a single meal. After each film, $11,000 of her earnings were placed into a trust fund intended to grow until she came of age. Shirley herself was permitted to spend $13 per week. The rest was managed by her parents. When she finally came of age and examined her finances, she found $44,000 out of an estimated $32 million. Her father, George Temple, had withdrawn the money, not secretly, not on a single occasion, systematically over years. In her autobiography, she described that moment in a single sentence. "I was neither disappointed nor angry." A short sentence, cold and precise as a scalpel. No bitterness, no tears. Only the quiet dignity of a woman who had seen too much darkness behind the stage lights. That was the Shirley Temple America never got to see. When she was 12 years old, she lost her contract at 20th Century Fox. Her new films were no longer drawing audiences. 2 box office failures were enough, and the studio dropped the child who had made them rich with the casual indifference of someone discarding a worn-out glove. Shirley was 12. Most girls her age were thinking about school friends. She was thinking about unemployment. She moved to MGM, the studio famous for its iron discipline and exhausting shooting schedules, and for consuming young stars like fuel. On her very first day at MGM, she experienced a trauma she would never forget. She'd been scheduled for a private meeting with producer Arthur Freed, a powerful man credited with launching the careers of many Hollywood legends. The conversation began normally. It ended with Freed behaving in a manner so inappropriate and so shocking that Shirley could only respond with a confused, reflexive laugh, not from amusement, but because children who have been taught that a smile bridges every gap will smile in moments of shock. It is a reflex their environment has built into them. Shortly afterward, she was coldly dismissed from the office. In a later interview with Larry King, she said simply, "That was when I understood that Hollywood was not a place for children. She made only one film at MGM. Then she left the studio." But Hollywood did not truly let her go. At 17, already a seasoned survivor of a system that had shaped and exploited her since infancy, she encountered David O. Selznick, the producer who had financed Gone with the Wind and was considered one of the most powerful men in the entertainment industry. A friend had warned her, if he wears silk stockings, never go into his office alone. When Selznick received her, Shirley automatically looked down at his legs. Silk stockings. She attempted to leave. He pressed a button. The door locked electronically. Shirley moved faster. She managed to escape through another exit before the situation could escalate. In her autobiography, she wrote, "I was faster than he was," a laconic sentence about a moment that could have changed everything. Shortly afterward, another influential man, referred to in her memoirs only as the Wizard, attempted the same thing. When she refused, he said coolly, "This is simply part of the job. Workplace culture." Shirley Temple looked him in the eyes and replied, "That may be in your contract. It is certainly not in mine." That single sentence became a quiet declaration on behalf of every woman who had chosen silence because she believed she had no other choice. At 35, long after she had stopped being little Shirley, having become a woman shaped by experiences most people are spared in a lifetime, the comedian and showman George Jessel invited her to discuss a potential role. The moment the door closed, his true nature revealed itself. He cornered her. This time, Shirley Temple was not 12. This time, she was not 17. She kicked him, firmly and with precision. Jessel went to his knees. In her autobiography, she wrote, "I saw pain, disgust, and hatred cross his face. I felt no pity. She was no longer a victim, she was a survivor. And she had made that transition without complaints, without public outbursts, without the kind of scandal Hollywood would have used so readily to discredit her." Alongside all of this, her private life played out like a second film never intended for any screen. At 17, she met John Agar, a young man who would later become an actor himself. They married in 1945. America rejoiced. The wedding of Hollywood's little princess was a national event. The photographs showed a radiant couple. What the photographs did not show, Agar was an alcoholic, unfaithful, and abusive. Shirley Temple, who had known the stages of the world, lived in fear behind closed doors. In 1949, she filed for divorce, citing emotional cruelty. She was awarded custody of their daughter, Linda Susan. But Agar was not finished with her. When President Richard Nixon nominated Shirley Temple Black, as she was known after her second marriage, as United States Ambassador to the United Nations in the early 1970s, the FBI conducted a background investigation. Agar was interviewed as part of the process. He used the opportunity to settle scores. He testified that Shirley was emotionally unstable and prone to extreme outbursts when things did not go her way. A lie, cold and calculated. It was Ronald Reagan, then governor of California and a longtime acquaintance from their shared Hollywood years, who stood up for her. He publicly described her as a woman of the highest moral character and unshakable strength. Agar's statements collapsed. Shirley Temple's nomination was confirmed. In 1950, 1 year after her divorce and at the age of 22, she met Charles Alden Black, a Navy officer and businessman from a stable background. 12 days after their first meeting, they were married. What sounds like impulsiveness proved to be the wisest decision of her life. The marriage lasted 55 years, without scandal, without public conflict, without the kind of drama Hollywood makes out of everything. Charles Black died in 2005. When he was gone, Shirley said, "He was the only person who ever made me feel truly safe." Rarely does a sentence so simple carry so much weight. Those who knew the couple personally described their relationship as something almost impossible to reconcile with everything that had come before it in Shirley's life. Charles Black had not grown up worshiping Shirley Temple, the movie star. He reportedly admitted with complete sincerity that he had barely seen any of her films before they met. To him, she was not a legend or a symbol or a national treasure. She was a woman. That simple fact, being seen as a person rather than a product, may have been the most transformative gift anyone ever gave her. In interviews conducted later in her life, Shirley would return again and again to the idea of being truly known by another person. Not the curls, not the smile, not the box office numbers. Her. Charles Black knew her, and he stayed. But life had one final great test in store for her. At the age of 44, in 1972, Shirley Temple Black was diagnosed with breast cancer. The diagnosis would have driven many women into discreet treatment rooms and polite silence. Shirley did the opposite. She spoke about it publicly. At a time when cancer was barely mentioned aloud, least of all by women, least of all in public, she stood before cameras and told America what was happening to her and what women could do to protect themselves. She became one of the first prominent women to speak openly about breast cancer and the importance of regular health screenings. Physicians later reported a measurable increase in the number of women seeking preventive examinations following her appearances. She had danced America through the Depression. Now, she was urging it to face its own mortality. She survived the cancer. But there was one final secret that only came to light after her death. Shirley Temple smoked. For decades in private, carefully hidden from the public, not out of shame for herself, but out of concern for others. She feared that children might imitate her if they ever saw her with a cigarette. The girl who had spent a lifetime protecting America was still, in the end, protecting its children from herself. She died on February 10, 2014, at her home in Woodside, California. The official cause of death was chronic obstructive pulmonary disease. She was 85 years old. What the FBI files revealed after her death, partially declassified in the years that followed, was less a single shocking disclosure than a quiet confirmation. Shirley Temple had been the subject of surveillance, rumors, and political interests since the 1930s. Communist organizations had attempted to use her name for propaganda purposes. The FBI had kept her in its sights, not as a suspect, but as a target, as a symbol, as a figure large enough that others believed they could gain power through her. But none of those forces broke her. What remains when every layer is stripped away? The costume, the curls, the smiles, the contracts, the millions that vanished, the men who believed they had some claim on her. What remains is a woman of extraordinary inner strength, a woman who had lost her childhood before she finished being a child, who earned millions and was left empty-handed, who was deceived, cornered, and used as an instrument and still walked away upright. Shirley Temple went into politics, and Hollywood's doors had long since closed behind her. She served as United States Ambassador to Ghana, one of her earliest diplomatic postings, where she was sent in 1974, and later to Czechoslovakia, where she arrived in 1989, just as the Berlin Wall fell and Eastern Europe began to transform its face. She was present at the fall of the Iron Curtain, not as a spectator, but as a representative of her country. Her work in Czechoslovakia during that extraordinary autumn of 1989 deserves particular attention. She arrived in Prague as the country stood at the edge of the Velvet Revolution, the peaceful uprising that would end 4 decades of communist rule. While diplomats around the world were still measuring their words and calculating political risk, Shirley Temple Black was meeting with dissidents, listening to ordinary citizens, and sending clear signals back to Washington about the direction history was moving. Václav Havel, the playwright and dissident who would become the country's first post-communist president, later spoke warmly of her presence and her instinct for human dignity. The woman who had once been dismissed as a former child star was, in that moment, one of the most perceptive American voices in one of the most important rooms in the world. The girl who had made America laugh during the darkest years of the Great Depression was standing by as the darkest division of the 20th century was overcome. If that is not an arc that spans an entire life, then no such arc exists. She said once, not long before her death, "I never stopped believing that there is still goodness in this world. That is not a sentence for interviews. That is a sentence you have to earn." Shirley Temple earned it, with every smile that concealed a pain the world was never meant to see, with every door that was locked and that she broke through regardless, with every dollar that disappeared and every word she wrote in spite of it, with every child whose life she may have saved by speaking openly about cancer, with every dissident she sat across from in a Prague meeting room while history held its breath. She was not the angel Hollywood invented. She was something more difficult and more beautiful. She was real. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, stay with me. Subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, and turn on notifications so you don't miss any new videos about Hollywood stars. See you in the next one.